So, I have a book recommendation for you. Read The Storyteller, Dave Grohl's book. It's A.D. Roundtree. Hey, you! How's it going? How are you? Welcome to this, your Tuesday edition of the show. Yeah, your Tuesday. Like every day that goes by, that's another step that you have taken forward. You're doing awesome. Hang in there. You got this. You are a badass. And if you need something, if there's anything I can do for you to make your Tuesday better, hit me up. I'm here with you. I'm here for you. At ADSXE is where you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. At ADSXE. Put in your phone now in case you need it later. So, yeah, like I said, read Dave Grohl's book, The Storyteller. Or if you're into audiobooks, he reads the audiobook himself. And here's the thing. If you are like me, you don't necessarily believe that reading and listening to an audiobook are the same thing. Now, I'm not all hardcore with it. A friend of mine, one of my new coworkers at KC95 in St. Louis, where I started doing mornings 2 days ago, learn the personality in the afternoon. She was telling me about this program that a lot of people seem to be doing, 75 Hard. I think it's where you have a sort of health, fitness, mental well-being program that you do hardcore for 75 straight days. And if you skip a day, or if you mess up, or if you fall off in some way, shape, or form, you got to start all over again. And that includes reading, I think, 10 pages of a book every single day. And it's very clear on this, audiobooks do not count. Now, here's the thing. This is the exact antithesis of how I believe it's good to go through the world. But wouldn't it be a dull life if we all felt exactly the same way? If you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, you know that I believe on slow and steady winning the race. If you're going to do a fitness thing, if you're trying to get in shape, give yourself time. And if you do fall off, if you do eat a cookie, if you do miss a day in the gym, no, it doesn't matter. Just pick it right back up again the next day. Setting yourself up with ridiculous goals and boundaries, for me personally, is a good way to not follow through. After the second or third time I mess up and eat a cookie, I'll be like, oh, F it. I like cookies more than I like sticking to something for 75 days. I'm done. I will only eat cookies. I will only sit on the couch. F this program, the gym, all of the above. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe that's a punk rock gene. Maybe someone tells me you have to do something and adhere to it rigidly. And I go, I'm going to do what the hell I want to do. Bite me. You can't tell me what to do. What, you pay for the program, sir. Oh, right. Got it. I see we're at a bit of an impasse. But I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I think reading and listening to an audiobook are the same thing, but I certainly don't think there's any shame in audiobooks, as is sort of implied by this 75 Hard program. And when it's an autobiography and it's read by the person who wrote those words in their own voice, I just don't think there's any better way to hear it. If you are like me and love baseball and you're any kind of a baseball fan, listening to Keith Hernandez's audiobook, I'm Keith Hernandez, is incredible from start to finish. To hear him read it in his own voice, oh man, it's just the greatest. Listening to Rob Halford tell his stories in his autobiography, man, it's amazing stuff. And by the way, if you haven't checked that out, it's called Confess, and it's incredible. I laughed, I cried, I was sick to my stomach, and that was only by the third chapter. It's good stuff. Same goes with Flea's autobiography. Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers wrote a great book called Acid for the Children, and it was an autobiography, but it wasn't a rock star autobiography. It sort of dealt more with his childhood, and it ends where the Red Hot Chili Peppers began. And there's definitely a sequel in there, but that's great as well. What Flea has in common with Dave Grohl is as incredibly expressive and articulate as those guys are on their chosen instruments, and while writing songs, they are equally as articulate and expressive with the spoken word and the written word. Dave Grohl's a high school dropout, and that guy, he can write. He knows how to bait a hook. He understands story structure. He understands how to keep you riveted to the edge of your seat as he's spinning a yarn. It's good stuff. But I have to tell you, the book was not at all what I expected. I expected it to be a collection of short stories, little bits and pieces of his life. It wasn't that at all. It was a straight up start to finish autobiography, detailing how he came into this world and detailing where he's at now, or at least where he was at the time he wrote the book, which is a pretty different place than where Dave is at the moment. Obviously, the late great Taylor Hawkins, Foo Fighters' legendary drummer, passed away a week or so ago. Tragic and untimely stuff. Stevie Nicks from Fleetwood Mac, who had worked with him and worked with the Foo Fighters, said that when Taylor Hawkins walked into a room, everybody looked up. And when he left the room, everybody felt sad and it felt empty. And in any dealings I've ever had with Foo Fighters or with Taylor Hawkins' other band, the Coattail Riders, he was so, I don't know, it was incredible because he's clearly an enormous rock star, or was an enormous rock star, and totally comfortable with that, understands that he was a huge part of a band that filled stadiums full of adoring fans that would hang on every last word of every last song that they played. He understood that. He understood the place in the world that he occupied. And yet, he was also so unaffected by it. There's a weird self-awareness that those guys in that particular band seem to have, where they get it. They are the biggest band in the world, or one of them right now. Everywhere they go, all around the globe, they would sell out stadiums, filled, like I said, with adoring fans that would passionately sing back every word of every song. They got that. They understood that. And maybe it was the lessons they learned from being able to hang around with folks like Paul McCartney, who'd been dealing with that life for quite some time and managed to, in some way, stay grounded. I don't know what it was. But they understood exactly who they were. There was no pretense about it. There was no, we're just ordinary guys. No, they got it. They were enormous, larger-than-life rock stars. But when they were talking to you, it never, in any way, shape, or form, felt like an us and them situation. And I think that's one of Dave Grohl's great skills. And I think it's so much a part of why he is where he is today. Like I said, incredibly articulate and expressive with the written and spoken word. He has the ability to reach you that way in just the same way, in fact, maybe sometimes even a little bit more of a profound way than his songs can. It's incredible stuff. And Dave Grohl, if you interview him, I've been joined on the podcast by Ferris Meowler the cat. Say hi, Ferris. No? Yeah. But here's the thing. Dave had this ability when he was talking to you, doing a litany of interviews around every release of every project he had. He had this ability that I've always admired in people, whether they were the Dave Grohls of this world or whether they were, just somebody that you meet in the street. He had this ability to give you his full and undivided and enthusiastic attention while he was speaking to you. Dave Grohl has this ability to make you the center of the world, of his world anyway, for the time that he spends with you. He has the ability to be your best friend within seconds. And I think really means it for the 10 or so minutes that you're talking to him. And it really is something. I think it comes from, well, a sense of humility that he got from his mom being a public school teacher that raised kids under very tough conditions. Something that he always appreciated. But that's not the reason I'm telling you to read this book. I think that, well, the passing of Taylor Hawkins affected a lot of people because his work affected all of us. And because, like I said, this was a band that had this incredible ability to make you feel as though you weren't alone, make you feel heard, make you feel understood, make you feel like what you were going through wasn't unique to you. And Dave Grohl and Taylor Hawkins made no bones about it. They were best friends. And you'd love to see them having fun and being friends. It made you want to go out and be friends with someone, and that's a really, really good thing. Made you want to stick by and support the people around you that matter to you. The way Dave Grohl decided to stick by Taylor Hawkins back in the early 2000s when he was in a coma for a couple of weeks following a drug overdose. It was decision time. This is a very serious problem. This could really affect the trajectory of the band, the career, everything that you worked so hard on. Are you gonna live with this guy who is at this point a bit of a liability? Or are you gonna find another drummer and move on? This was Dave Grohl's best friend. And he's like, nope, we're standing by him. He's going to stay in this band, and we're going to get through it somehow. And you start to realize that while he's not a guy that's apt to complain a whole lot, old Dave, he's been through an awful lot. If there's anybody that's an expert at getting knocked down, picking yourself back up, starting over, putting the pieces back together, and coming back stronger, a better version of yourself because of the experience, well, that would be Dave. That's a guy who knows how to start over. Had to do it when his family stopped being a family. Had to do it numerous times with friends and bandmates before he got into Nirvana. And then all of a sudden he was literally the drummer in the biggest band in the world, a band that changed everything for all of us. And that came to a screeching, painful halt. He had to start over again. He talked about being offered the gig with Tom Petty in the book and how it would have been easy. Tom Petty explained to him that the Heartbreakers toured very comfortably. He would have his own tour bus. He would be on Easy Street, playing music that he loved. But he wasn't quite ready for that. He was willing to take it on the chin and build something from scratch, which he did, into the biggest band in the world again. Lightning doesn't really tend to strike twice for too many people. You can't bottle that stuff. Dave Grohl wasn't just in one of the biggest bands in the world, he was in two of the biggest bands in the world, which is a crazy thing to think. But you read his book, or you listen to his book, and in no way, shape, or form do you go, boy, that guy's lucky. You go, boy, what tenacity, what strength of character, what force of will. Or at least that's what I got from it. I'm a fan. And the book was written for fans. But it's great and inspiring stuff no matter who you are. And there was a moment in the book where he talked about the people he lost in his life. Talked about losing his dad, who he had a difficult and complicated relationship with. Talked about losing Kurt Cobain. Talked about losing his childhood best friend, Jimmy Swanson. And you know what's interesting? I was listening to this audiobook as I was driving from my old home in Las Vegas to my new home in St. Louis to start the job that I began 2 days ago at KC95. I lost my dad not that long ago. If you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, you know it was a bumpy road with that and many other things over the last few months. And I'm still dealing with it. I think you, me, all of us, when we go through that kind of loss, we always deal with it forever. As you and I have said before on the podcast, grief apparently hits you in waves. And over time, those waves become smaller and further apart. I'm still waiting on that to happen. But as I knuckle down into a new job and a new life, it's great to have something else to focus on. I find the waves are maybe more predictable. As they say, grief isn't something you can manage. Grief manages you, and you're at the mercy of it. But having something to sink my teeth into, something to focus on, something to take on, a new challenge, a new chapter, that has really, really helped. But as I was saying, I was driving from my old home in Las Vegas to my new home in St. Louis, listening to the Dave Grohl audiobook, The Storyteller. And he talked about loss of people that were huge parts of his life. His dad, Kurt Cobain, and his best friend, Jimmy Swanson. And the way he summed up grief, and the way he summed up always having those people with you for the rest of your life, always carrying them with you, seeing them in little ways and big wherever you go, whatever you do, being reminded of them by the most unexpected thing. And the way he described it was so beautiful because, well, it meant that in many ways he hadn't lost those people. In many ways he was never alone. And if you have been through anything like the last 3 months of my life, you know that it's good to feel that way. And it can help you feel as though you aren't alone. I suppose that's what his great talent is, besides making you feel like for that moment that he's dealing with you, you're his best friend. He's got an ability, whether it's through the written word or through his songs, to make us feel like this thing that we're going through, we're not the only ones. And that meant a lot. It meant a lot to the point where when he was describing it in the book, on my way driving the thousands of miles from one home to another, I had to pull over and take a moment. But it wasn't for a bad reason. It was good. It was healthy. It was cleansing. And I'm glad I did it. It was powerful stuff. And I guess that's my hope for you, for me, for all of us who are involved in these conversations we have. I hope that by listening to this and by joining in the conversation, you know that you're not alone, because you're not. A lot of people wonder if this is going to be the end of Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl had talked about it numerous times. Last time I was lucky enough to speak to him, he was like, every tour I get home, I tell my wife, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this album tour thing. That's done. I just got to stay home. And he said, she looks at him and goes, okay, we'll see how that goes. And within a week or two, he's got some other crazy harebrained scheme which becomes a movie or an album or a tour or some sort of massive life event for all of us. This is a guy who, like I said, is adept at picking up the pieces, starting over again, coming back a stronger, better version of himself. But he's also a guy who said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I'm not as young as I once was. And I embrace that. I understand who I am and where I'm at in life. So is this the end for Foo Fighters? It's tough to say, isn't it? But I do know this. A guy who has come through what Dave has come through can accomplish pretty much anything. And if he wants to keep going, if he wants to do something, if he sets his mind to it, well, he's going to do it. And so too can you. That is it for me. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. As always, this time that you and I spend together, it's the best part of my day. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll do it all over again. Have a great one. Later.